I thought DEI was for black people, and unfortunately, that was just not the case. So anyway, I hope everybody's doing well. I want to say hello to a lot of you that are in here. I see a few hundred of you have already arrived. Good morning. Hey, Kendall Green, how are you? Good to see you. I saw your son online. He's doing a great job. Tell him I said hello, and I'm very proud of him. Let's see who else we got in here. I see. Renard Hollins and Elizabeth. Oh, St. Louis. Nice. I love St. Louis. Latanya Love. St. Louis has this whole group of these really interesting and amazing black people, from Mike Roberts across the board. The dentist, Doctor. Oh gosh, can somebody put his name in the chat. He's a dentist. And he's a great guy. He's come to the convention many times, and I have a lot of respect for him. I'm just so bad with names. Forgive me, but he's one of the best black dentists in the entire country. He's a great guy, and he's out of St. Louis. So St. Louis just has these really awesome black people there, and I keep meaning to make a trip out there because I want to hang out and get a chance to meet everybody. And also, if you want to know where we're going to also be in the near future, we are going to do a millionaire training camp in Miami, March 7th, the weekend of March 7th. So if you'd like to join us in Miami, the weekend of March 7th, feel free to join us. I'll let you guys know when the tickets are available. The passes will be available next week. And also, of course, the All Black National Convention is going to happen August 24th that weekend. It's going to be the biggest convention ever. There's going to be thousands of people there. We've got 6 African presidents that are coming. Like, it's the craziest thing. The Dr. Ken Harris and the Black Business League, they just do such a great job of connecting and networking and bringing people together. And that's the kind of leadership the community needs. So Dr. Harris is the kind of guy I would go and I would go down the battlefield next to that guy any day of the week because I have so much appreciation and respect for him. And Dr. Harris is the guy we're partnering with. So this year's convention is going to be our 10th anniversary. It's also the 125th year anniversary of the Black Business League, started by Booker T. Washington, and it's going to have thousands of people this year. It's going to be the biggest event ever, and it's going to be right next to Invest Fest at the same time. So you're going to have access to a lot of black wealth, probably the greatest gathering of black wealth and intelligent black people that I've ever seen in the history of this country, especially independent, economically independent people, people that know how to make money. Because one of the things that we have to confront, one of the things that we don't talk about is why don't HBCUs produce more black wealth builders? So, why do HBCUs, how can an HBCU be around for 100 years and still be struggling financially? And I say this with all due respect. I gave a State of the Union address at the Wealth Summit at Bowie State, hosted by Pastor Akeisha Jefferson. And I just thought about that and I said, how come our HBCUs struggle so much financially? And one of the reasons I believe they struggle is because for a university to prosper, you need a wealthy donor base. And that donor base can be filled with employees. That donor base can be filled with people that are trying to give you like whatever money they have left over from their job. You have to have some millionaires in there, maybe some billionaires. You got to have some big ballers up in there. You got to have some people in there that can write that $20 million check so you can get that new science lab or that $10 million check so you can get started on that new football stadium and compete with all the big schools that are making billions of dollars off black athletes. You need that. You need people that can write those massive checks that'll help you to get out of a financial slump, that'll help you get that multi-billion dollar endowment. So I really believe that HBCUs, anybody associated with HBCUs, should probably push for stronger commitments to entrepreneurship and just skills in general, trade skills, things like that, in addition to entrepreneurship. That's where the wealth is built. The wealth in America is not built through jobs. Jobs don't build wealth in America. We've talked about this. I've shown you the stats. Everybody in here knows this. Wealth is built through owning businesses, owning stock, where you own a piece of a business, right? It comes from real estate. It comes from owning assets. So never forget that. In fact, I'm laying out a wealth model where you can kind of picture wealth as like think of your wealth as like a lake, right? You dig yourself a lake where you've got plenty of water. So imagine you live in California. You need to have plenty of water for people to drink and for people to use. Also, you need water available to put out fires. So you got water coming down from the mountains, and then you got this big lake, and the river that comes from the mountains empties out into the lake. Can y'all visualize that, right? So visualize a river coming down and emptying out into the lake. The lake is your wealth. The lake is your wealth. So when you first dig it out, it's going to be empty. But if you keep letting the water from the river pour into the lake, then you're gonna have some wealth. You're gonna have some water sort of build up, a reservoir, whatever you're going to call it. And then also imagine little streams coming out of the lake and out of the river. These little streams are going to the different neighborhoods. This is the liquidity that they call money liquidity. So imagine having these little canals built from the river going out into different parts of the city, different parts of the state. You know, Altadena's over here and Beverly Hills over there and whatever's over there, right? And you got plenty of water going to the different neighborhoods. Well, that's kind of like your spending and living expenses, right? So imagine that this is how wealth is built. This is to me a perfect vision of wealth, actually. So think of it like this. So imagine, so you got your wealth, right? Y'all follow me? You got your big lake that's got all your wealth in it, right? And then you've got your river, which is your income. That's your income coming from your business. It may be income coming from your job. Never ever think that I've ever said to you that wealth has to be from the wealth can only come from people who own businesses and run businesses. I've never said you have to be an entrepreneur to make money. I've never said that. A lot of you have jobs, and I think it's fine as long as that income stream is being used to build wealth and it's not just being spent, right? So you've got so so you got your income stream, right? That's coming in, and that's supposedly creating your wealth. And then the little streams are kind of being cut off. You're cutting little canals out of the stream, and then a canal out of the lake that's actually getting water to the places it needs to go, right? The water is being used for consumption. You drink the water, you take baths in the water. Maybe if you have a fire, you can put out the fire easily. Why? Well, because you got the canal built where you are the income stream is getting water to the different parts of the city. Make sense? And then I want you to add another piece to this imagery, okay? I want you to imagine how another way that that lake can be filled. Give me in the chat, what's another way that that lake can be filled? Give me another way that that lake can be filled up besides the stream, the income stream coming from the mountains. Give me another way. Put it in the chat. Yes, from the rainwater, right? From rain, like right, literally, water liquidity coming out of the sky, right? Just literally from water and liquidity coming out of the sky, right? So that would be compound interest. That's compound interest, right? So the more you build up your wealth, the more compound interest that you can have access to, and you're catching this compound interest, which is literally money coming out of the sky. That's where rich people come from. That's where wealthy people come from. Wealthy people are people that are able to benefit from compound interest because they make investments consistently, and those investments literally give them an advantage that puts them ahead of most Americans because most Americans don't have money coming out of the sky. So if you ever want to picture, like try to figure out, okay, am I doing well financially? Am I not? Do I have a good financial system in place or not? I want you to ask yourself, do I have a lake? Do I have a lake with a big reservoir just filled with liquidity that I can use in case anything happens, in case I need that money? Number two, do you have a stream going into the lake that's going to fill up the lake? Do you have some income stream out there that's allowing you to generate income? And then after that, you can cut canals from both the stream and cut canals from the lake that will get water to the various areas of your life where you need liquidity, right? You got money over here for the kids, money that you need to pay bills, money over here that you need to pay your mortgage, right? Things like that. Now, then here's the other thing I want you to visualize. So and then you got the money, the rain coming down from the sky, which is adding to the lake. It's filling up your lake. That's the goal. The goal is to fill up the lake. That's why the river's coming down and all this other stuff. But then imagine if the lake gets cut off. Right? So think about this. You got this lake with water coming down, and I want you to imagine if somebody just gets mad at you and they say, "We don't want you to have any water." Right? This is what white folks do to us financially, in case you want to know. This is how they declare economic warfare on us, right? They cut off the lake. They they say, "We're gonna dam you up and we're gonna block your flow of income." And here's where we're in trouble, right? We haven't dug out a lake. We're not capturing that water and saving it for a rainy day. We are literally pulling and sucking the lake dry and pulling money out. We're consuming all of the liquidity. Do you follow this? Are y'all getting this analogy? I use this to explain this to my son, how wealth works and what he wants to aim for financially. And I said, God, I gotta share this with everybody because I never used this analogy before. I was like, oh, this is a perfect analogy, right? So white folks will dam up your river. They'll cut your river off because you're living off the river when really you're supposed to be living off the lake. You're supposed to have a backup plan. Your lake is your wealth. And some of y'all, you run into a situation like the LA fires where the whole damn hood is burning down and you ain't got no water because you forgot to fill up the reservoir. You forgot to fill up the lake or whatever the hell they're called, those big things that are filled with water, whatever you want to call it, right? You fill it up in case of emergency. You fill it up in case the income stream gets cut off, in case they decide to take your black job. No black person in America is safe if they are living paycheck to paycheck on one stream of income. No black person is safe. No human is safe. especially if you're black. And the other thing is that whenever they want to declare war on you, that's what they do. They cut off the river. In fact, I don't know if y'all know this, but there's been entire wars. I saw something. I don't know. I'm gonna get it wrong, but I think it's like has to do with Ethiopia and another country where they got the Nile River kind of running down and it goes through one of the countries and they were like, screw you, we're gonna hurt you, so we're gonna dam up this river so you can't get the water, so the water won't get to you. And they were literally about to fight over that. There was actually a war that was gonna start over this. This is like a major geopolitical tension. So this economic warfare is something that is declared on a regular basis. Black people are the most vulnerable to economic warfare, number one, because we are the least likely to ever be taught how economics works, because we send our children to white people to educate them, which is the hugest mistake a human being could ever make in their life. And then number two, we don't go out of our way to learn what we need to learn. Everybody know how to twerk and everybody knows how to play basketball, but don't nobody how to know how to manage wealth. That's insanity. That's absolute complete insanity. And then number three, the habits get very, very bad. The habits are not the kinds of conservative preparatory habits that you should have when you are a community that is constantly under attack. The habits are not there. So then a Donald Trump comes along or something, and then suddenly everybody's in tears and scared to death because you weren't prepared. I mean, the people that are prepared are going to be okay. The people that are prepared are going to be fine. The ones who are not prepared are vulnerable. Yeah, they're going to get their butts kicked. It's going to be hard. Okay. So if you want to visualize what it means to be financially secure, I want you to kind of ask yourself those basic questions. Do I have the river flowing the income into and do I have I dug out the lake? Am I filling up the lake? And then and then do I have the lake position where I can collect money out of the sky? And am I prepared? And if they cut off my river, am I going to still be okay? Okay. Half of damn LA burned down because they weren't prepared. So are you prepared? Because at some point they're gonna come burn down your Black Wall Street. They're gonna come burn it down. They're gonna come get you. They always do. I have no doubt. I don't say when I say or if I say when. Okay. All right. Now let's move on. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button if you haven't done it yet. Also, just a quick reminder, if you want to join us for Money in the Morning, we do financial consciousness training every single morning, 7 days a week. If you haven't done so, text the word morning to the number 87948. You can text morning to 87948. And we're going to Ghana this summer if you want to go with us to Ghana. So if you want to learn about our travel plans, just text the word travel to that same number, 87948. Text travel to 87948. Also, my wife sends her regards. I know some of you all work with her directly, and she is sick with food poisoning. So if you're wondering where Dr. Alicia's at, we went to DC and something happened. I went there for the Bowie State thing, and she ate some fish. That's and then the rest is like Black History. So so pray for my wife. I got to keep checking on her because she's having a rough day today. All right. So anyway, let me keep going here. Let me before I read what Dr. Anderson says about DEI and how DEI died and what happened here and how it really, in my opinion, I feel like it kind of became almost anti-black. And I know that's a kind of a tough way to describe it, but that to me is the only way to describe it. I went and I was sort of researching like what are all the DEI did start off as affirmative action. DEI actually began in the civil rights movement, with the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and it was designed primarily for African Americans to get opportunities in a society where Jim Crow had kind of dominated things for a very long time. Well, then in the 1970s, the women's rights movement came along, and white women started saying, "Well, we want what black people have." And then the American Disabilities Act, or the Americans with Disabilities Act in 1990 came along, and then there were LGBTQ rights sort of thrown in there in the mix as well. And if you were to kind of make a list of all the people who expect to benefit from DEI, when they talk about DEI, they're not just talking about black people anymore. Now, 30 years ago, if they said affirmative action, they were talking about us. When companies came to universities looking to hire for affirmative action, African Americans were the primary target. I remember this because when I came out of college, I had the highest grade point average of all the black students on the entire campus. So I had a lot of opportunities for any company that was looking for a black person. I pretty much knew I was going to get the job. I knew I was going to get the scholarship because affirmative action was a big deal. But we live in a different world now. The world changed. So if you were to list all the groups that expect to benefit from DEI, it's no longer just African Americans. You have to throw in Latinos and Hispanics, Native Americans and indigenous peoples, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, Middle Easterners, and North African folks, gender-based groups like women, non-binary and gender non-conforming individuals. lesbian, gay, bisexual individuals, transgender individuals, queer and non-binary individuals, people with disabilities, physical disabilities. If you have wheelchair users, blind and deaf people, neurodivergent individuals. That means autism, ADHD, or dyslexia. They were counted as well. Mental health conditions. If you have depression or PTSD, you qualified as a DEI hire. So isn't this crazy, right? This is nuts. Older workers over 50 facing age discrimination. So ageism is counted under DEI. Younger professionals who need mentorship and career support. So young people, old people, fat people, sick people, first generation college students were under DEI. Individuals from low income backgrounds, people with a history of incarceration. I gotta respect that because I have some friends that deserve a second chance. People I grew up with. Muslims, Jews, Sikhs, Hindus, and other religious minorities, cultural minorities, including refugees and immigrants, veterans and military families. Thank you for your service, by the way. If you're a veteran, I love and respect all my veterans. Former service members transitioning to civilian careers, spouses and dependents of military personnel. So not just the veterans, but their spouses and their kids. Those who are intersectional. Let's see, Black women in corporate leadership, which would be what they call intersectional. That means you are a woman and you're black, and so this created a little bit of an advantage for black women over black men. So a lot of black women benefited a lot more from DEI than black men, but really the bigger beneficiaries were these other groups: LGBTQ, disabled people, etc. So effectively, as time went on, DEI just kind of disappeared. It was no longer a black thing anymore. And I know that we sort of jump out and we say, why are you racist because you don't support DEI? I don't know if that's really true anymore. I don't know if the evidence is really there. I still remember seeing that Black Enterprise article that said only 4% of the DEI hires were black. So again, not to say that you shouldn't be outraged. I know some of you are outraged by Trump. Some of you love Trump. It's up to you to decide how you feel. Some of you are in the middle. But I really don't when I hear DEI, I don't hear black. There's a congresswoman I respect named Nina Turner out of Ohio. I heard Nina say when they say DEI, they really mean black. And I was like, and I told her, I said, no, with all due respect, Nina, and I love you, they're not talking about black people really. They're talking about liberal stuff. Now we're included in that. Don't get me wrong. I don't think these people love black people. So don't just let's be clear about that. But I don't think they're just talking about the race thing. I think that we are used as the poster child, right? We are the poster child. And this has been true for a long time. I still remember being in grad school, and I remember at University of Kentucky, which is a very racist institution that doesn't really hire a lot of black professors, and probably got rid of their DEI programs as soon as they could. They put me on the cover of the magazine for their graduate student programs. And I remember in way back in the 1990s, I was like, why am I on the cover of the magazine? I'm the only black student that you have in the entire math department. And then I was like, oh, well, that's why I'm on the cover of the magazine, right? Because what happens is that they market the diversity more than they actually pursue it. You follow me? Like they'll market you as opposed to actually working to support you and help you. I personally believe that if more African American males had been beneficiaries of DEI, I think they would have stood up for it more. But a lot of black men don't know other black men who are getting advantages that come from DEI, right? And this is just a real thing. So ultimately, I would say to you that DEI to some extent became anti-black after a while, that the liberal racism replaced the conservative racism, and now you got racism on your left, racism on your right. The only pathway to true power for a black person in America is economics. The only pathway to true power for a black person in America is to own some assets. The only pathway to true power is to take sovereignty in the things that you own, the things that matter to you. The biggest thing that you have to do is, if you are interested in doing this, is buy your freedom. You have to be able to find a way to make sure you and your kids don't have to go to work for some racist capitalist in order to pay the bills, but you have to prepare for this. We've talked about this, right? We've talked about what that means to be prepared. We've talked about the value of time. We talked about what happens when you invest consistently over time and you build enough of a nest egg. You filled up that lake enough with the river water that you're okay if they cut the river off, right? You're still going to be fine, but we don't necessarily instill this as a core value in the children. We have to instill to them and let them know, like, look, don't fall asleep. Don't be out here asleep now. This is a tough world. This is a world that does not care about you, right? And so when we run around and we hear people say Black Lives Matter and or we care whether or not people like black people, whether or not somebody claims to like you, it's easy for somebody to claim to like you. It's very easy for them to claim to like you. What's much harder is for people to actually do engage in actions that show that they really care about your well-being. And I have not seen a lot of action. I hear a lot of talk. I hear a lot of rhetoric because talk is cheap. It's easy to say that I value something. It's another thing for me to show it. Okay. Like I could tell my wife all day, baby, I love you. But if I say, baby, I love you, and I'm out here making babies with other women, leaving her at home by herself, not helping pay no bills, well, then, I mean, she would have a right to question that and to say, hey, I think love is actually a verb. Love is an action. Love is not just a word that comes out of your mouth. I need you to do a little bit more than just tell me you love me. I need you to show me. Okay. And that's my 2 cents. Okay. All right. So let's read what Dr. Anderson says here. And Dr. Anderson talks about this topic on page 269 of his book, The Black History Reader. I'm about to read from this book. We're almost done with it. We've been reading it for a couple years now. So let me go. It's question 98 on page 269 of the Black History Reader. His website is powernomics.com. I encourage you, if you want to educate your own children, you don't have to take them out of school. You don't have to do that. Just supplement their education with what they need to know. Today, I just talked to the great niece of Marcus Garvey. And I swear it was so wonderful to talk to her because she is she has Garvey all in her blood. She has Garvey in her veins in terms of economic independence. She is doing well financially because she's always been a saver, always been an investor, and I just had so much respect for her. I don't know if she's even in this room or not. So if you're listening, you're hearing me just gush about how proud I was of you. But this is what you can do. This is a choice. This is a decision, and when we had a candid conversation. Marcus Garvey had Jamaican roots, and we did talk about culturally some things that African Americans can learn from our Caribbean counterparts about what is required to be strong and to be prepared. What is required when you live in a world where there ain't no safety nets. When you ain't got no friends. When ain't Captain America is not coming to save you. When white folks ain't really got your back like that. Even most black people ain't really got your back like that. So when you know these things and you accept this as a reality, then why wouldn't you do the work necessary to be prepared? So anyway, let me read here. So on page 269 of the Black History Reader in Dr. Claude Anderson's book, he has a section called The Birth of New Classes. This is where they replaced black people in the DEI conversation. As political concepts, are gender issues elevated above and in competition with black issues? There are some Americans, both black and white, who understand how women's issues and the sisterhood have been systematically used to divide and impede black progress in America. One such person was Eric Foner, a white writer who recited how leading white feminists and champions of voting suffrage for women in the 1860s felt about black people. He quoted several telling statements that were made by leading suffragette, Elizabeth Stanton in the mid 1860s. According to Foner, Miss Stanton questioned blacks having voting rights equal to a white woman, saying, quote, "Just think of Sambo, who does not know the difference between a monarchy and a republic, who never read the Declaration of Independence, making laws for white women, Lydia Marie Child, Lucretia Mott, or Fanny Kimball." She further stated, "The black woman would be better off as the slave of an educated white man than a degraded, ignorant black one." Hmm. Bet you didn't hear that one in your public school. When they were miseducating you for 12 years. I bet y'all never heard this one. The black woman would be better. This is a leading feminist. She said this. She said the black woman would be better off as the slave of an educated white man than a degraded, ignorant black one. I don't know if she means better as a black slave, male slave. I don't know what she's saying with that, but it's pretty bad, right? When white and black women stand together on women's issues like voting and socioeconomic opportunities, it promotes an illusion of gender equality between the races. Women's issues are class issues, which are different from race issues. The feminist movement of the mid 1800s was primarily over voting rights. Contrary to popular myths, white women did not have voting rights if they were white women did have voting rights if they were property owners. The passage of the 19th Amendment in 1919 gave white women full voting and civil rights, which white women used to strengthen the electorate power of the white male. The 19th Amendment did not help black women who had to wait until the 1960s for the enactment of civil rights voting rights laws. It is important that black women who support women's issues do not become confused and divided from their black male counterpart over gender-related issues. Once divided, they are conquered. White women and white men play as a team. Apparently, Sojourner Truth, a black feminist as well as a black freedom fighter, knew the difference between being a woman and being a black person. After listening to a white man talk about how white women were in a protected class, she rose to her feet and asked, "Ain't I a woman?" I have borne 13 children and have seen them sold off to slavery. And when I cried out with my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. She knew no white women who were suffering such pain simply because they were women. Today, when black and white women join together, both groups should understand the difference between being a woman and being black in our society. Conservatives and liberals alike have successfully blurred the distinctions between white women and black Americans. In form, degree, and intent, racism against blacks is vastly different from the class discrimination that women have received from the white male. Unlike blacks, who are an obsolete labor class, white women are essential to the propagation of the white race. She not only lives with and bears the children of the white male, but most importantly, she has co owned, co controlled, co influenced, and inherited nearly 100% of everything the white male owns since the founding of the country. Blacks have held no power over white women, nor has the black race benefited from any gender or class discrimination against women. Equating gender discrimination and racism is like comparing a headache to cancer. It might be a headache being a woman, but throughout history, it was cancerous to be black. Hmm, interesting. That's an interesting perspective. Um, I think that everybody should have their own perception on this. I'm not here to tell anybody what to think about this, but I do think that there's something about that sisterhood that just seems a little bit weird. Um, it seems like when it's almost, it reminds me of like when you have that friend who where you're ride maybe you're 12 years old and you're ride or die for that friend, and whenever they need you, you're always there for them. But when you need them, they're never there for you. Like there's an alpha and there's a beta. Like they're like, hey, follow me, and you follow them and do whatever they say. But then when you say follow me, they ignore you, right? Like I really wonder what the world would look like if white women listened to black women on black issues the way some black women listen to white women on liberal issues, let's say liberal issues. It tends to be more liberal, right? Sometimes it could be conservative. But I really think about that, right? Like I just kind of think about that in terms of we know that the black family matters to most black women. Not all. I mean, people are different, but for most black women, I know the black family matters. They care about their sons, they care about their husbands, they care about their brother, they care about the children and the structure of the family. I'm really not sure. I'm really trying to figure out what scenarios we can imagine where white women collectively have really come forward to stand up on behalf of what's been going on in the black family. Like it's almost as if sometimes I feel as a man, I've always felt like they've maybe felt that the best thing they could do for you as a black woman is to get you away from the black man, right? Like the black man is toxic. The black man is ignorant. The black man ain't got no money. The black man, he's probably going to end up in jail anyway. So get you a white man and your life will be better. It's almost like when they had us growing up thinking that the best thing you could do as a black person was move out of the hood, move away from your community, move away from your people, right? We're trying to help this kid by getting him out of the hood. Almost like so being black to some extent was a little bit of a cancer. It was a cancerous sort of brand to have, like right, like you're labeled with something that is very toxic. That your blackness is something that where you can succeed in spite of the fact that you're black, as opposed to being successful because of the fact that you're black. And I think that is, and I even also think about, I've told you all this story about how my wife, the university she teaches at is a university that doesn't hire African Americans at all. There's not one African American male professor on the entire campus at that university that I know of. And when she took a stand on an issue that related to one of her African colleagues, who's a black man, he's a good friend of mine, and I like the guy. Immediately she started getting treated much differently. They started treating her badly, because I think that there's something very scary and very threatening about African Americans who are sticking together. I think, goes back to slavery. If you know, Dr. Anderson has shared with us many examples where black men and black women sticking together or black people coming together in a group was seen as a threat. It was seen as a bad thing. And so ultimately, I think that it's interesting when Dr. Anderson says that the white female pretty much stands by the white male, which is what she's supposed to do. If that's her husband, that's her son, why wouldn't she do that? Right? And you think about even in the election, where there were so many people that were mad at black men and saying you didn't vote for the Democrats like we told you to do. But it was very interesting to me because black men supported the Democrats more than white women did. White women didn't show up for black women. Like for the black women that really wanted to see, say, Kamala Harris get elected or whatever, it wasn't the black male that came up short. We gave overwhelming support. It was the white female that didn't show up. It was the white male that didn't show up, right? But the black male is the one that's kind of like gets the finger wagged at him, like because you didn't do what you were told. You're not doing what we tell you to do. So I kind of think that this conversation has to kind of be had, and I think that Black first to me definitely means the black family has to be first and foremost, but I also think that men have to really think carefully about what it means to really support and respect women as well. Like I think I know I just personally know a lot of black women who were disappointed by the men in their lives, and I think that that's highly inappropriate. I really do. I think that men should push themselves to show up for the women that matter to them. That's the conversation I have with our son all the time. I just tell him, I say, look, you're a guy, man. Come on, you can't the girls are not supposed to be doing all the work. They're supposed to be able to depend on you. That's really important. And I know men who haven't filled that role. So I think there's accountability to go all the way around. I think loyalty is hard, commitment is hard, discipline is hard. And that's why a lot of people don't really know a damn thing about loyalty. They don't know a damn thing about commitment. They don't know a damn thing about discipline because they walk away whenever it gets difficult. And if you do that, then you're going to fail. You're never going to be successful at anything. You'll never have respect from anyone anywhere on earth. No other communities won't respect you, etc. But if you can get those things, if you understand what it means to be loyal to standing on what you said, following through on what you believe, standing by the people that you say you stand by, then I believe you can't be stopped. I believe you can't be stopped. You can't be touched. I do not wake up on any day. I've never woke up in fear of white people, black people, or anybody. Why would I be afraid of you? I'm never going to change. You're not going to talk me out of who I am. So why am I even why would I even spend a minute even wondering if I'm concerned about what you're doing or what you're thinking? And that's a choice. That's absolutely a choice. Okay, so anyway, let me move on. I'm gonna move on really quick. And just a reminder too, I did a training that's very popular. A million people have seen it. It's really good. It's called How to Make Money Without Working. If you want to check it out, text the word money to the number 87948 on your phone. Text money to 87948. I think you'll like stock options. I think that you'll enjoy. A lot of you already do stock options, and those of you that do, I already sent you some stuff out today. I encourage you to take a look at that. It'll take like 40 minutes, but I guarantee it's going to change your life. There's no question. So text the word money to the number 87948. And also, if you want to begin your wealth building journey with the Black Business School, you can go to blackmoney101.com. That's blackmoney101.com. All right. So here is, I'm going to go to question 100. And Dr. Anderson talks about this. This is on page 272 of the Black History Reader. His books are at powernomics.com. I hope you will support this amazing, wonderful man. It really means a lot to the family that you all are supporting. And for those that have extra money, I hope you'll go buy multiple books. Just buy a bunch, have them in your living room, give them away to people in the community. We have to be our own distribution network for the ideas that matter to us. We have to be our own public school system. I was reciting stats the other day that basically said that less than 15% of black males in high school are even reading or doing math at grade level, which is absolutely devastating for our families. It's going to destroy our ability to survive. These kids are going to struggle when they're in their 20s and 30s because they don't have the basic skills. So we have to do that. We have to do that. We have to do that. We can't get mad at the people that didn't do that. We have to do that. So Dr. Anderson, I think introducing the kids to Claude Anderson is the best gift you can give them. So I encourage you to feel free to do that. Like support this man. He deserves our support 100%. So his website is powernomics.com. All right. So question 100, what was the scenario that led to the death of the Black Civil Rights Movement? Okay, for everyone but the caretakers of old black civil rights organizations, the civil rights movement for blacks is dead. Civil rights for blacks had a brief life twice within a 100-year period. It reached a point of diminishing returns and then died a premature death during the late 1960s. Today, all of the rights gained by the black civil rights movement have been bequeathed to groups that are more acceptable to the larger society. Women, LGBT, Hispanics, Asians, handicapped, and poor whites. We talked about that earlier. All the groups that benefit from DEI other than you. It sucks, but it's true. The first black civil rights efforts formally started shortly after the Civil War, as slaves realized they had received paper freedom and rights they couldn't exercise. For nearly a century, they pursued their phantom freedom and rights nationally by the way of public forums, courthouses, schoolhouses, union halls, and journalism. In the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education desegregation decision, blacks won a battle, but the decision had incalculable destructive effects on the black community. During the subsequent civil rights protest period, blacks stimulated a rush of new social movements by a melange of social groups, which co-opted the language. Remember when being woke used to be like a black thing? Anybody remember that? Where woke was like a black thing, and then suddenly it became like anything liberal, like how did that happen? I remember when people say woke and it was like kind of a hip black thing to say. Then we stopped saying it 20 years ago and white people took it over. All right, so let's see here. Okay, they co-opted the language and historical evidence that blacks used to justify their own quest for equal rights and freedom. The barrage of liberal social causes offended the larger society in general and motivated conservatives to orchestrate a backlash. So this is the thing. They'll throw you out front. They'll use you as a human shield to catch bullets when the conservatives are shooting their guns back at the liberals, but really they're going after liberals. They're not just, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they love all black people. They don't. I believe black Republicans I believe Republicans hate black liberals and they love black Republicans. The liberals love black liberals and they hate black conservatives. That's what it is. It's a liberal conservative issue. It's not black and white. So when people try to co-opt it and say, "Well, you're a racist because you're not a Democrat," I think that's the craziest thing in the world. I don't believe anybody has a right to claim racism for themselves, for their own personal benefit. So let's keep reading here. So Dr. Anderson says that the barrage of liberal social causes offended the larger society in general and motivated conservatives to orchestrate a backlash. Since blacks were the largest, most visible, and least acceptable group seeking social change, they became the primary target of conservative angst. Human shield, that's what you became. That's what you became. You became their bulletproof vest. Hey, we're gonna hold up a black person. I heard an NPR interview the other day where there was this guy who was talking, and I'm gonna tell you the truth. He sounded a little sassy. He came off a little Roland Martinish, and he was basically talking about, DEI and how mad he was about DEI. And every single example, I was listening with my wife. I said, watch every example he gives about DEI. He's gonna say something about black. He's gonna say, well, it's just like discriminating based on the color of your skin. It's just like saying you can't come in if you're black. Every example he used was black, and I said, how come he doesn't use gay people as an? I mean, the man. I'm not saying he was. I'm being petty when I say, but he was, you know, he could have been a hairdresser or something, right? I'm gonna be honest with you. And so I was like, why isn't he talking about his own cause? He don't sound black. So why does he keep talking about black people? Like this, like you're really doing this for us. Well, it's just like discriminating based on race. Like no, stop that. But this is what Dr. Anderson's talking about. They love to use us as the human shield. Like, oh, we're doing this for black people. Oh, this is just like being racist. No, it's not. Fight your own battle. That's what I say. Fight your own damn battle. Because if we're not the beneficiaries of the war, we shouldn't be in it. Ain't no Viet Cong never called me nigga. And I'm gonna tell you the truth. I ain't never had a Proud Boy call me nigga either. I'm no disrespect. I'm not saying that they're great. I'm not saying I love them. I'm not saying they're good people. I'm just saying that, when I saw stuff like January 6th, I saw some black people in the crowd too. I know just as many angry black conservatives as I know angry black liberals. So when you try to delineate it all based on race, I just kind of have to question that. I have to challenge you a little bit. Not to say you don't have a right to have your beliefs, but I think you need something called proof, and I don't see a lot of proof of that. I just don't. If there were proof everywhere, then Jussie Smollett wouldn't have had to make up that crazy story about going out for a Subway sandwich at 2 in the morning in negative 20-degree weather, running to Trump supporters who said, ain't you that nigger from Empire? Aren't you that nigger from Empire? That whole story sounded like it was made up by a junkie. Like that, nobody in Chicago believed that, man, because that weekend there was an Arctic blast. What do they call those Arctic, whatever they, when the wind comes down from the North Pole, because we are destroying the climate, by the way. Climate change is real. That's where I become real liberal. Like, y'all ain't paying attention to the climate. Yeah, it's happening, right? So the Arctic blast came down, and it was super cold in Chicago that week. That's my city. Or polar vortex. Thank you. I should be using the right words. I sound so ignorant right now. But this polar vortex came down. It was super cold, and everybody in Chicago was like, "Dude, you're lying." Nobody was out at 2 o'clock in the morning on that night because it was freezing. So to me, again, if you're telling me like, oh my God, they're so dangerous, they're gonna come and hurt black people, but it's like you can't find a real life example. Now, I mean, like, I just don't get it. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, right? I'm just like, okay, show me where they went up in the south side of Chicago to the blackest neighborhood they can find and executed 300 black people. Then at that point, then we're up in arms. Then we're going to be ready to fight. And hopefully that will never happen. I don't want that to really happen. But my point is that sometimes I think that people love to fearmonger. They love on both sides, Republicans and Democrats. They love to get us scared. And when you're scared, you're operating at that low vibrational frequency. And people who operate on the low vibrational frequency do as they're told. Fear is used to gain power. It's how powerful people get other people to do what they tell them to do. And I don't think you should operate in fear. I don't think that's going to benefit you. We've been operating in fear for a long time. And it's look where it's gotten us. It hasn't gotten us anywhere. So let's keep going. Let me keep reading here before I make more people mad because I make people mad when I talk like this. All right. So it says here, and I hope that, by the way, I hope that we can disagree and still love each other. Can you give me a yes in the chat? Because I tell you, I get so much flack about the political stuff. Give me a yes if we can disagree, and you can say, "Oh, I don't agree with you on that, boy. So I didn't like what you." Like, can we love each other? Can we do that? Give me a quick yes, so we can just. I need to confirm this, so we don't divide ourselves over politics, because that's the goal. The goal is like if we divide the black community, if we keep them from listening to financial scholars, and they're going to remain financially ignorant. So if you say, well, "I'm not listening to Boyce because even though he has a PhD in finance and can teach me all these things about economics, I'm not listening to him because he's not a Democrat like me or not a Republican like me," then basically they're accomplishing their goal. Their goal is to keep you blind, deaf, dumb, stupid, and a day late and a dollar short and always behind. I cannot imagine. I do not understand why we are not outraged over the fact that the majority of our kids in the public schools cannot read. Why are we not outraged about this? Why are we not pissed off, kicking down walls, busting down doors, flipping over tables, defunding organ? We should be pissed over this. They are coming in your neighborhood and stealing trillions of dollars from you because they're taking an asset that's more valuable than money. You can't see it because these children don't look like dollar bills. They look like dollar bills to their oppressors, though. That little black boy you just had, oh, he looks like a dollar bill to the prison industrial complex. That little black girl you have, oh, she looks like a dollar bill to corporate America. Oh, that other son that you had, oh, yeah, he looks like a dollar bill to the NCAA and NBA corporate complexes, right? So they see our kids and they see a cha-ching. When you send your child to college, they're making billions of dollars because student loan debt is the number one barrier to black wealth in existence. That's why most educated black people can't build wealth because they're back paying some big white university for a 4-year degree that they got. They got them that $50,000 a year job. So they see the dollar bills. I don't think you see it. I don't think you see it. I don't think you understand the danger of what happens to a community when you're letting your kids go to schools that don't educate black children. And every single statistic I can imagine shows you black kids can't even read, and nobody's like stopping and saying, "Hey, wait, why would we support anybody giving money to a school where 90% of the children can't read? What kind of insanity is that?" I get, oh, I know what it is. You go with the status quo, you go with the norm because they built a society of sheep. They've trained us to be cowardly sheep. They've trained us not to speak up. They've trained us to just repeatedly do what we've been told. Because if you try to change the protocol, then you get defined as the radical angry black man, which I've been defined as for the last 30 years. I'm used to it. I'm okay with that. I want to be the black sheep. Because I know that I'm right. I have complete confidence that I'm correct, but this is not a hard math problem. I've solved difficult math problems before. This is not easy. This is an easy one. This is not advanced calculus. This is like pre-algebra. If you're sending children in the millions to schools that are not giving them any tangible skills and are not teaching them how to read, write, and do math, the vast majority of those children will fail. The vast majority of those children cannot provide for a family. The vast majority of those children are marginalized by society. The vast majority of those children cannot go on 12 years later, just 12 years later, and really properly raise a child and take care of a spouse. They can't. They can't. They're in the struggle. And I'm not sure why we just lead them to slaughter in that way. I don't understand why we're not angry about this. So that's that's where I stand on this. Let me keep reading here. This is page 273 of the Black History Reader, Dr. Claude Anderson's book. You can get a copy at powernomics.com. He says the movement was drowned out by the new groups and outflanked by the conservatives. In the heat of various civil rights battles for control over jobs, schools, housing, community services, businesses, and tax dollars, black leadership ran out of insight, social tools, and strategies for effectively dealing with the more subtle and less direct forms of racism that cropped up. As the competing social groups began to appropriate the civil rights agenda, conservative political forces started using their government and media power to diminish the black component of the civil rights movement. They successfully destroyed the legitimate base of the black movement by diluting it beyond recognition. They identified every group that they could possibly perceive as aggrieved and made it equal to blacks. Thus, the public perception of blacks was severely damaged and distorted. The unique problems they faced were made to appear no more important than the problems faced by other so called victims of discrimination. The black civil rights movement, though successful in many respects, did not change the power relationship between blacks and whites. The movement had at least four flaws that left unaddressed critical imperatives for black America as described below. One, the movement's black leadership placed the entire weight of its resources on achieving social integration and gaining access to white society by making themselves acceptable in all respects. They believed, perhaps naively, that by removing the symbols of Jim Crowism and requiring access to various segments of white society, black people would gain equality. Wrong. White people didn't stop being white. No, they don't love you. They didn't. You're not a white man. Two, black leaders did not recognize that effective empowerment strategies for black America had to address the historical maldistribution of the nation's wealth, power, resources, rights, and privileges reserved exclusively for white society. Without acknowledging the economic disparities and seeking correction, it was not possible to neutralize the forces behind Jim Crow. Equality was structurally not possible. And you got that wrong because you didn't talk about the economics. You had people talking about the economics, but those voices were muted. When Dr. King started talking about the economics, they shot that man on that balcony. When you had black folks like Dr. Claude Anderson talking about the economics, nobody wanted to talk to him because they said, you're talking about money, now you're talking about power. So I'm telling you, if you want to have power, you better go get some money. If you want your kids to have power, you better teach them about money. You better prepare them financially. You better prepare them to own assets, because the most powerful I've ever felt as a black man was when I knew I had enough money in the bank to tell any white man who disrespected me that he could kiss my whole entire black ass. That's when I knew I had power. That's when I knew I was powerful. Can nobody come in my house and tell me how to run my household? Ain't nobody in this house the man in my house except for me. You have to earn these things. Same thing is true with women. Economics is the only way to have power in America. I don't know when we're going to get that through our thick heads and start making a plan. Not a big black plan, not a national plan, not a plan with 40 million Negroes attached. I'm talking about your family plan. Your plan, man. You need a plan. And I can promise you that if you make a plan and you execute the plan and you follow through with the plan consistently, your children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren are all going to benefit. They're all going to benefit from that. You got to think different. You got to let go of the nonsense. Integration was a fairy tale. Equality was a joke. Civil rights was cute, but it was retractable. They throw it out there and then they pull it back like a fishing rod, and we're chasing it like little puppies. Number three, and here's the thing, they're not going to teach this to you. They're not going to explain this to you. Why would anybody who benefits from controlling you ever teach you how to be independent? What in the hell? Who in the world made you think that that was ever going to happen? A pimp ain't never gonna teach you how to be a pimp ain't never gonna teach you how to not get pimped. A pimp will only teach you how to be a better hoe. A pimp will only teach you how to make more money on the corner. A pimp will never give you true power. Capitalism is full of pimps. That's what that system is. That's what it does. So keep getting pimped if you want to, and you'll see what the results are. Number three, black leadership did not develop a long-term national plan with goals and strategies spelling out where blacks ought to be going and how to best get there. That's the part that drives me crazy, because you know what? I would hear all the time. I heard this all the time back when we had this really smart guy named Barack Obama in the White House. I admire him. I think he's so smart. I do. I think Al Sharpton's really smart. I told you. The man's a genius. I will never. I might call Al Sharpton. I might make fun of his perm. I might make fun of how chubby he used to be. I might make fun of him stuttering and messing up words on his show, but I will never call him stupid. I will never call Al Sharpton stupid because I sat next to this man for hours at a time. He's an absolute genius, 100%, without a doubt. I remember when Obama was in office, and I remember people kept on saying the black community doesn't have a plan. They just we don't know what black people want because they don't have a plan. That was the most infuriating thing you could ever say to me because there were people that had a plan. But what happened was that they deliberately didn't listen to the people that had a plan. You had I was I had been a professor at Syracuse for 12 years and we had a plan. I sat down with Louis Farrakhan and a group of economists in 2015, I believe, for 9 hours in a room, and we made a plan. Dr. Claude Anderson wrote books 30 years ago. There was a plan. But when they would say, well, what's the plan for African Americans? And they're deciding who to talk to, they didn't want to talk to somebody like me. They talked to me for a minute, but they didn't when they realized I wasn't going to carry water for them, they didn't want to talk to me anymore. They didn't want to talk to Dr. Claude Anderson. They ignore him every time he would go to Capitol Hill. They don't want to, they certainly don't talk to Farrakhan. Lord, I mean, that would be scary for them. Even Dr. Julianne Malveaux, who was a president of an HBCU, has a PhD in economics from MIT. If they could, do you think? Give me a yes in the chat. Give me a yes. Do you think that Dr. Malveaux, if they said, Dr. Malveaux, we need a plan for the African American community, do you think that Julianne Malveaux, who has a PhD in economics from MIT, could have come up with a plan? Do you think so? What do y'all think? You think she could have wrote something up real quick? You think she could, or you think she would have said black people don't got no plan. We don't know where we the herd. Do you think that that's what she would have said, or do you think she would have said no problem? I would be more than happy to present a full PowerPoint presentation for you and the entire economic subcommittee on the plan for Black America. Do you think that she could have pulled this off? Because she's not just smart; she's got smart friends. So when they would say Black people don't have a plan, or they say Black leadership didn't have a national plan, that's because that was not the real Black leadership. The reason they couldn't drive the car was because none of these Negroes had a damn driver's license. And they were crashing the car off the side of a bridge. And they were saying the black leaders keep driving the car off the side of the bridge. That's because you're picking the blindest, worst drivers you could possibly find to drive the car because you want that car to go off a bridge. You're doing this on purpose. This was intentional. They want to give the impression that the black community is a bunch of goofball, incompetent rappers, basketball players, and comedians who don't have a plan. The whole economic plan for black people was Diddy, vote or die, vote or die, vote or die, vote or die. Right? That was the plan. But there were people out there that had a plan. These are the individuals that were the real leaders in the community. It was not these Negroes they put on TV. So this has always been, that's why I tell you that I just really believe you shouldn't even pay any attention to black leadership. Don't listen. Be your own leader. I don't teach any students. I told you this, I don't have any students. I teach teachers. I teach teachers because every one of you has a sphere of influence. Every one of you has a group of people that will listen to you. Every one of you has somebody that's next to you. You got a spouse, maybe you got a baby daddy, maybe you got kids, you got parents, you got people around you that know less about economics than you do. I know they know less about economics than you do because I know a lot about economics and I talk a lot. So if you talk to me a lot and you listen to me a lot, you probably know more about economics than 95% of the people around you. So I'm telling you, I'm empowering you, I'm endowing you, I'm deputizing you. Lead, goddammit, lead. Excuse my French, I won't cuss anymore, but I need you to lead now. You are the leadership. You are because your heart is pure. You're not in it, you're not corrupted. You're not in it for the money. You're not in it for the fame. You're not trying to get on TV so you can get more women, right? You're in it because you care about your kids. You're here because you love your family. You're here because you want to win. You're here because you want something different. You're here because you're breaking generational curses. So you are the ones that are supposed to lead. You. Lead yourself. I just really believe we should disavow this whole idea of black leadership. If somebody's got a good idea and it sounds good, then you take that down, but you're the leader. You're the boss. Because if you keep on listening to these people on TV, they're going to lead you astray. They're in the back room making business deals. They're in the back room jockeying for position. They're in the back room negotiating, saying, give me 100,000 and I'll get all my black followers to go and do this and do that. Man, to hell with all that. Lead yourself. That's what you do. Let's keep going. Number 4, the civil rights movement, like any successful social movement, needed 3 components to substantially change the circumstances of blacks. 1, strong grassroots organization. 2, research-based entities to provide policy structure and guidance. That means think tanks. Dr. Claude Anderson does have a think tank called the Harvest Institute, by the way. When you buy books at powernomics.com, you're supporting the Harvest Institute. 3, a wealthy class to financially subsidize the movement. That means you rich Negroes out there, you can't just sit on your money and be rich. You should try to find some way to support and subsidize the ideas that you believe in. It doesn't mean you give all your money away, but it also means, in my opinion, that when we have those talented people that are capable of generating economically, we don't just train them to be high-paid employees. You want to learn how to develop institutional frameworks so you can create jobs and opportunities for other people. Black success means nothing if that success does not multiply. Let me say it again in another way. Black success means nothing if it doesn't multiply and become contagious to other black people. Your success must be contagious. That requires a certain way of thinking. That means that whatever I got, I'm going to make sure other people get what I got. It starts with teaching. It starts with talking. I became a college professor. I was sitting in a room at Syracuse University with 30 students at a time. I said, no, I want to go to the internet so that I can be contagious. And I can take whatever's inside my brain and find anybody that will listen and share all this crap I've been studying like crazy for the last 15, 20 years. I want to share it far and wide as far as it'll go because I want to be contagious. The same thing is true with yourself. Also, when you're talking about economics, economic power is built through the ability to establish institutional infrastructure. That's why we talk about building sturdy children, systems, technology, entrepreneurship, relationships, and delegation for the youth. Kids who think in terms of systems and technology and entrepreneurship are far wealthier than young people who think in terms of job applications and getting that nice fancy corporate job. HBCUs aren't doing it yet. I love HBCUs, don't get me wrong, but they're not doing it yet because they were established specifically so that they could go work for white people. That's what they were established for. I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm saying that's what they were established for. They might have to break away from this. I believe that they can, but that's what they were established for. Why is that? Well, because when white folks wanted to develop industry, they funded institutions to give them workers that could come and work in that industry. Why do you think corporations give money to universities? I went to Indiana University where I met my wife, and I was walking around and I saw this sign saying this building was donated by Dow Chemical. Why in the hell would Dow Chemical go buy a building for Indiana University? Well, because they wanted those graduates. They were like, what you got for me? You got some graduates for me? You got some people that can come and work for me? So this is how these models work. So the same way others build institutions that produce people that are going to support the objectives of their other institutions or economic entities, we have to do the same. We need to rechannel the river. There's a flow of young, talented black people where they're being guided right into the arms of corporate America. We need to redirect that river and pull some of those resources toward us. I mean, there's a million examples I can think of. I mean, just considering the idea that if you take any HBCU in America and they play against a big white university like, I don't know, Alabama, Alabama will have black athletes that will kick the entire ass of the HBCU athletes. And I just think that's the most hilarious thing in the world. That's a really clear visual example of how our best and brightest get redirected to institutions that aren't run and controlled by us. Because the building of institutions requires a certain type of thinking. And this is what I believe is going to get us where we need to get to. We have to have children, millions of children, who are taught to think in terms of institutional frameworks and systems. That kid that wants to build the business, that kid that wants to be the investor, that kid that knows how to create a job, that kid that knows how to network, that kid that knows how to build healthy relationships so that he can delegate to others and find team members that he can partner with that will help him build some sort of framework that will employ lots of people. You done had Loud ass talking rappers run around with hip hop for the last 50 years. Hip hop's been around for 50 years, and not one single meaningful institution has come out of that. Not one. Not one. Even hip hop's going to be on. Even Harvard and Yale are now creating hip hop classes where they're taking control of it anyway. The industry took control of it. Not one instance, not one hospital, not one automobile manufacturing plant, not one chip manufacturer, not nothing, not even a chain of restaurants. You ain't even got a chain of like 3,000 restaurants. Not one school system, not one system was built out of that. I think that's insane. That's absolutely insane because rappers can't be famous without systems. There are systems that are designed with infrastructure that give distribution to the music. That's how everybody knows who Glorilla is, or everybody knows about Kanye West, or they know all about Jay-Z, is because there's infrastructure. The recording industry, Sony and all these other they have infrastructure. They have systems. They have institutions. So where are our institutions, and why is it that we don't talk about that more? I think that we should. I think that we should. Because right now we're playing a mixture between the Hunger Games and the Squid Games. We're living off the one successful Negro protocol. We're living off of symbolism. You have one successful Negro who gets a really good job, and they parade him around to everyone else, and everyone gets excited, and they say, "Hey, if I sell out just like him, I can get a good job too." That's not going to do it. That's just not going to do it. Let me keep going. And there now there are exceptions. Somebody mentioned Robert Smith. I like Robert Smith and I like Byron Allen. One thing about Robert Smith that I would love to see is I remember he paid off the student loans of the Morehouse students, which I thought was amazing because you get rid of that debt so they have an opportunity to do other things. I'd be curious to know what else he's doing in terms of putting together, say, a $500 million endowment fund to support businesses that are started by those individuals, right? Again, it's easier said than done, but that's also what I'd like to see is not just the removal of debt, but the acceleration of economic potential through access to capital. That's the missing component. That's the part that I'm looking for. And Byron Allen is a great guy. He's doing amazing things, but I haven't seen much more from him other than his white wife. I don't really know what that means. I don't know how to interpret that. I'm not making fun of that. I'm not saying that if you marry a white person, you're a sellout, but I can say that from where I come from, it would be very hard for me to talk to you the way I talk to you if I sat here and said all this black stuff, but then said, "Hey, but by the way, when I made the most important decision in my life of who I want to share my wealth with, I picked Becky. I could have picked Shaniqua. There's a lot of Shaniquas that might have married me, but I wanted Becky. I'm gonna be honest with you. That's where I probably sound like Umar Johnson or something. But I'm not here to judge anybody's decision. I'm just here to say that I think that who you marry does say something about you. I really believe that. Okay. But no disrespect to Kamala and Dougie and all this other stuff. But I'm not really sure how you can talk about black power without talking about the black family and what that's supposed to look like. And I even have people in my own family who made a different decision from me, and I respect that. But I think that that conversation still has to be had. I don't think we can act like it doesn't matter because there's few decisions in my life that were more important than who I chose as my spouse. There are few decisions. I can't imagine too many decisions that were more important than that. So anyway, let me keep going. Let me keep reading. Just a quick reminder: if you want to join us and study stock market stuff, we're doing a financial slumber party on Friday night at 11 p.m. That's where we get together on a private Zoom and we put on our pajamas and we eat popcorn and we learn finance together and we play music. It's like a little party, but it's kind of fun, kind of a weird nerdy thing. If you want to join us, make sure you get on the text list. I'll send you guys the link and you can participate in that. It'll be Friday night at 11. So make sure you're on the text list if you're not. You can do that by pulling out your phone, text the word morning to the number 87948 on your phone, and I will send you a link and you can join us. So text morning to 87948. If you live in another country, you can go to drboyceelevate.com. So drboyceelevate.com or text morning to 87948. I'll send you an invitation to our financial slumber party. We're doing stuff in the Black Business School every single day of the week. All right. So unfortunately, the movement only had the first component. Sorry, let me see here. Okay, so he's talking about the three things that a good social justice movement needs. One, a strong grassroots movement. Two, a research-based entity like a think tank. Three, a wealthy class of people to financially subsidize the movement. That's why you can't be anti-capitalist or anti-money. And I don't believe in everybody being a capitalist. We've talked about that. But I think that when you get to the point where you vilify all rich people, I think that that's bad because you need that money in order for you to sustain yourself. I've seen a lot of movements that die because all the people that are out protesting on the weekend, they got to go to work on Monday and they got to go to work for the very same capitalists that they claim to hate so much. But you hate them so much that you work for them. Well, why? Well, because you need to eat. You need money for your family. So money has to be a part of any movement. The Black Panther movement, I believe, would have been a better movement if it had not been influenced heavily by the Marxists. I believe that. I'm just going to tell you the truth. Black Lives Matter, the Black Panther movement, even the Civil Rights movement, I think had a heavy Marxist socialist undertone. Where unfortunately, I believe that they were kind of being used for other people's purposes, which I think were disconnected from what we want as Black people. I don't see us as a community where we hated our business owners. I don't see us as a community where we thought that it was evil because you actually had some land, had some property, had some assets. I think that our movement should be diverse, where we've got those people who can run the businesses and own the assets, who can fund the softball team, who can build the park for the community, who can create a job for their brother, right? Like that. So that economic foundation is critical for any movement. So I don't. So when everybody's like talking about like capitalism is just like racism and all capitalism have to die and all this, I don't get all that. I get it. I understand your critique of capitalism. Karl Marx has a great critique of capitalism. He's right on every front. I told you your jobs kind of steal your soul. They steal your time. They take you away from your family. They take you away from your purpose. They take you away from all the things that matter to you. So I do agree with that. But at the same time, I don't want us walking around here in this capitalist society with no money. I just really think that money is your weapon and your shield that allows you to get things done. So that's the balance I encourage you to have as you pursue your wealth. Money can't be everything, but money can't be nothing. Right? Extremism is going to get you in trouble either way. If money becomes your god, then you're going to be worshiping a false god. But if you ignore money and you start to vilify money, money becomes your devil, then your life will become a living hell. Let me say it again. If money becomes your God, you will worship a false God. If money becomes your devil, then you're going to be living in hell. So don't make money your God. Don't make it your devil. Just make it a tool. Make it something that you acquire so you can have the financial peace necessary to allow you to elevate and have a higher degree of consciousness so you can go on about your life and do the things that matter. The things that matter to you. Take care of your kids. Take care of yourself. Go on a vacation when you want to. Get away from those crazy white folks at your job. Whatever it is that you want to do, money allows you to do those things. Okay. So let me keep going. So he says, unfortunately, the movement had the first component, which was grassroots, the passionate support of the Black masses. The cumulative effect of these flaws left the civil rights movement with no place to go, no way to get there, and no leadership to take them. Black people were no longer at the top of any agenda. A few visible Black organizations managed to survive by becoming politically correct and expanding their focus to so-called minorities, immigrants, poor people, LGBT, women, and abused children. They could not survive in the powerful conservative climate by continuing to target the problems of Blacks alone. Although Black conditions continued to need attention, most Black organizations could not raise enough money, there's that word money to survive by focusing solely upon their own people. So they could not raise enough money. Why can they raise enough money? They couldn't raise enough money because they didn't understand economic models. The Black Panther Party needed an economist. Maybe they had one. Maybe I don't want to assume they didn't. But man, I was like, Lord, if I could have taught you how to make some money, then you could have pursued the mission. Shotguns for everybody, right? Like we could have done so much more if we had enough money. Think about how many times you have a plan, you have a process and a plan that you're supposed to pursue. You have God's plan, and you're supposed to pursue God's plan, which is coming from your passion, coming from your purpose, but you can't do it because you got to go to work. Or you can't do it because you ain't got enough money. So instead of doing God's plan, you got to go with Master's plan. And Master's plan is sit your Black ass down, you shut your mouth, boy, and you show up to work and you do what you're told. That's Master's plan. So money, to me, money is just, you talk, I don't give a damn about equality. I want to win. And money, to me, is the great equalizer in the sense that it can allow you to just put it to the side and elevate. I told my daughter this yesterday. I said, okay, you're 14. Next year, you got to come and work for me. And she said, and I said, why do you think you have to come work for me? She said, because you know that I need money. I said, yeah. I said, why is that? She said, well, because I want to be a professional dancer and dancers don't make money. I said, yeah. I said, because I want you to have enough money so you don't have to think about money. We're going to get money out of the way so you can really live your life, so you can really pursue your passion. That's what money's going to be the key that unlocks the jail cell that incarcerates so many people. Financial freedom, that's what it is. So I'm going to tell you the best blessing that God gave me was when he somehow told my little dumbass 19-year-old self to get a doctorate in finance. That's what happened. I met a guy. He's a great guy. His name's Dr. Tommy Whitler, and he's a professor at DePaul. And I didn't have any money, and I was like, man, I gotta figure out how to make some money one day. And he drove this Porsche, and I said, professors don't make any money. How are you driving a Porsche? And he said, oh, finance professors make the most money out of all the professors on campus. So I was like, oh, well, I'm good at school and I need some money. So let me go study this money thing. I figure if I study money, learned about money, somebody might pay me money to talk about money. And I did that because I didn't have any money. And I didn't and to me, and now that I think back on it, it's like, well, wait, that's common sense. That's common sense. Pay attention now. If you are constrained by something, if you know that there's something that holds the key to your liberation, like if you have been able to deduce like that one thing, that one barrier, that one thing that if you acquire this one thing, it's going to make the whole the different all the difference in the world. That is a gift. That's a blessing. Because then at that point you say, okay, now that I know the one thing that's blocking me from getting where I want to get to, then I'm going to spend all my time learning as much about that thing as I possibly can. I'm going to meditate on it. I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to talk to my friends about it. I'm going to explore it. I'm going to investigate it. I'm going to look into it and get good at it because you figured it out. You figured out the puzzle. We solved racism. Teach your kids to be economically free, and I guarantee you that racism will kind of diminish. Racism has a hard time imposing itself on a financially independent black person. Do you follow what I'm saying? Do you get this? Let me keep going. Let me keep reading. I'm almost done. I'm starting to sweat, so I need to stop doing all that. I'm 53. I shouldn't be up here sweating. I ain't no Southern Baptist minister. All right, so let's keep going here. All right, so so Dr. Anderson says black people are no longer at the top of any agenda. A few visible black organizations managed to survive by becoming politically correct and expanding their focus to all the other groups, immigrants, minorities, poor people, LGBT, etc. He also says, let's see here. Although black conditions continue to need attention, most black organizations could not raise enough money to survive by focusing solely upon their own people. The surviving black organizations remain visible by continuing to pursue the integration dream. It would not have been necessary for black organizations to abandon their own community if the black civil rights movement had established a sense of community cohesiveness founded on group economics and group politics. The National Urban League and the NAACP are still active but have lost much of their influence and membership. The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and the Black Panther Party are defunct. The Congress of Racial Equality joined the conservative ranks of a national political party, and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference barely survives. This nation's political apparatus disabled many of the civil rights groups by destroying or neutralizing black leadership. Adam Clayton Powell and Stokely Carmichael were discredited. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X and Medgar Evers were assassinated. Rap Brown, Eldridge Cleaver, Angela Davis, and prominent members of the Black Panthers were criminalized. Many of the others were enticed into mainstream society. Consequently, the large block of black leadership was eradicated, changed, or disappeared after just one generation following the Great Movement. Having failed to address the structural conditions of black America, the 1960s left little structure upon which blacks could build. Instead, that colorful era only left faded memories and soul-stirring songs. The void created by the death of the black civil rights movement presented the opportunity for a cadre of black neoconservatives to join the popular white conservative movement and proclaim themselves and their new organizations the new black leadership. They were publicly blessed by the highest levels of government in corporate America, and they offered black America political and economic ideologies that were taken right from the conservative right-wing political Bible. Their politically correct ideologies advocated for less government and taxes, free market economies, privatization of government services, and race-neutral government policies. Black traditional leadership, like the black masses, is ignored by government and the media except during times of racial disturbances or movement anniversaries, aka symbolism. Thank you, Dr. Claude Anderson. Greatest black man in the history of this country, in my opinion. Love that man. Um, that's all I can say. There's nothing else to say. All right, so it's time to go. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. It was real. We will be back tomorrow morning. We do this every single day, as we've done for years. 10 a.m. If you want to join us, make sure you text the word morning to the phone number 87948. Text morning to the number 87948. Also, if you want to, my wife, Dr. Alicia Watkins, she's a licensed therapist and a full professor of social work. She helped us to make Black history in the Black Business School by heading the Black Financial Therapy Department. What we concluded is that our people are crazy and that racism makes us insane. It's PTSD, it's all kinds of trauma, and the trauma has to be healed for us to heal our families and to heal our economics. So she got together with all her expert Black therapist friends, and they've all gotten together and done something pretty amazing called the Black Love Weekend. This is going to happen during the weekend, Valentine's Day weekend. This is for anybody who is in a relationship, has wants to be in a relationship, wants to have good relationships with other people, not just your partners, but your kids, your parents, your friends, your business associates, or whatever. And there is science that explains how to do this. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to drop science the whole weekend. They've got a men's group, a women's group. They're doing sex therapy, all kinds of stuff. Trauma, of course, that's always on the menu. And so if you want to join, you can go to theblackloveweekend.com. That's theblackloveweekend.com. And you can take a look, see what they have going on. I encourage you to participate. Bring your whole family. Also, if you want to get other notifications from Dr. Alicia, you can text the word love to the number 87948. So text love to 87948, and I will send you information about that event. It's going to be on Valentine's Day weekend because if we don't rebuild our families and start to learn to get along with each other in a healthy way, then we're doomed and done. Wealth becomes much harder when you're doing it all by yourself. Wealth is a team sport. Family is critical for wealth. So if you ever want to build your wealth, get along with the people around you. That requires some therapy. It requires some growth. All right. So have a good night, everybody. God bless you. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate you. And I will